I mean, Shiba owes him a father. I'm just saying, but
Oh,
you know.
shit. I ain't never heard Dice throw some shit like that.
Was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
Welcome back to the Hishaku Hideout, a weekly podcast where we talk about the latest chapter and everything Kagurabachi. I'm here with Dice.
What's happening?
And today we're actually getting into the Redux series. This is our first episode where we'll be covering one volume per episode starting with volume 1. The members will get this 1 week early. We appreciate all your support. Speaking of the members, we have Junior Morpheus, Angry Demon Noises, Mark Cascade, Crazy Beatrice, and Amity Matake. Appreciate you guys. Let's jump into the episode.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man, it feels good to be back at the beginnings, right?
Yeah. This is gonna be interesting, right? We got quite a lot to cover, quite a lot to get into, and obviously knowing where we are currently in terms of the chapters that are currently releasing, right? At this moment, we got the Seitei War arc, right, that we're getting into. So it's gonna be fun to look back at where it all started and seeing how things connect, what kind of seeds Hogazono was planning during this time. So it's gonna be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, making parallels to like the current events in the story, you know, looking back at the beginnings, character moments. You know, there was we talked about a couple that we've already caught in this volume, just some like subtle characterization or things that might play into characters, like where they're at even in the present events in the story.
Yeah, and since we're covering a couple of chapters, like, we might be a bit all over the place. We're not going to cover, obviously, each chapter beat by beat. You know, just, you and me both took notes. So it's really just going to be getting into some of the more notable moments and some things that kind of stood out to us, whether it's specific lines of dialogue, specific character moments, like you said, that just stand out to us, or we can somehow relate to, like I said, what's been going on either in the current arc that is releasing or previous arcs. Right, so yeah, obviously, yeah, go ahead.
Even still question marks, you know, question marks from like the first volume that we still have now, like Hishaku popping up, you know, in the first the first chapter, and we still don't know homie's name.
Yeah, that's a good one, because like just getting into Hishaku right off the top, it definitely, how can I say this, like it hits different, right? It's a completely different vibe knowing what we know now, knowing that his name still hasn't been released. Somehow this guy feels even more like what's the word, ominous, right? Like,
yeah, he has like more of a heavier presence, because like honestly, when I first read it, I was like, oh, this guy's a jobber, we're gonna like smoke him out in a couple in the beginning of the story. But no, not only have we not dealt with him, we still don't even know what bro's really about.
Yeah, not just his name, right? But like his everything about him, really.
Yeah, because he's very like important to the Hishaku and their plans. I mean, think about like how he, you know, remote activated his sorcery, or like triggered, you know, a trigger activation for his sorceries when that dude started talking about the Hishaku. You know, he has like that. He's like can hand out like the little seeds to where they can like throw it and a big tree wall would pop up, or just put his seed in other men and women, you know. But like the dude is like very instrumental in like all their like their plans and stuff, you know.
I mean, in this chapter we see that, you know, that sorcery you're talking about, it gets activated with a spell, right when the Yakuza boss is gonna mention the Hishaku, or when he does mention the Hishaku by name, it kind of triggers that spell, and the dude is just you know, his body gets turned inside out basically. And it is
body
similar
horror in the first chapter. That was like pretty visceral like depictions that, you know, we haven't really seen much like that, you know, in a bit in a Kagurabachi, you know what I mean? That kind of like horrible depictions of people just getting mutilated and cut up. Cause like Chihiro's just like cutting dudes, slitting throats in the first chapter, cutting like big hordes of people in half.
Yeah, Chihiro's moving crazy off the jump. But yeah, when it comes to Hishaku, I think this is as much like, it's interesting because to this day, this first chapter is still like, as much as we've ever seen him on panel, like his presence actually like doing shit, you know, like to this day we still
Like
haven't
at
really
one
seen
moment.
him move like this.
Yeah, like in one moment, this is like the most active, this is like his longest moments in chapter 1 out of 112 chapters of the first part.
Yeah, like even,
We're
you know,
getting
his lines of
like aside
dialogue.
from fighting, like not including fighting, but just like talking, you know?
Yeah.
And he does say something that I thought was like kind of interesting. He said, I received your payment for the officials. Like when he told that to the Yakuza boss, I was like, the officials? And I wonder what he exactly meant by that. You know, because obviously, like, I know what it means. Of course, Kazan, like, leaked the information to the Hishaku, but I don't think they were also collecting like, who are they collecting payments for? Or, I mean, is that just what they're doing and they just pocketing the money?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I hadn't really thought about that. I see the panel you're talking about, but
you know, that's kind of like like we were mentioning earlier, you know, it's just like, now that we're reading this, like I could say Char's moment when Char's just talking about like, today I'm happy, you know, when she just said that to Chihiro, like when he took her around and got her food and stuff, like reading it, it's like, okay, like that's sweet. But now that we know like what that poor girl went through and then like her mom, you know, it's like that those moments are a little heavier and they kind of resonate a bit more, or at least for me, you know.
no, for sure. And I mean, we'll definitely be getting more into Char next episode, because her backstory hasn't really been explored yet. You know, when you think about it, it's like you said, we know, so we know where this is all leading up to. But in this first volume, we only get like hints of, you know, the Kyonagi clan, what we know, her mother died, but that's really about it, right? Obviously, we find out a couple of chapters in why the Kyonagi clan was massacred, or at least what we're told, right? In terms of the flesh and the myth of the flesh making you immortal. Like, that's all stuff we'll get into. Yeah.
That homie just outright says, should we eat her? Like, what? Like,
yeah,
like crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like this dude literally will resort to cannibalism straight off of a rumor. Like, that's how insane the Kuyanagi clan's like the myth or the lore of them in that world. And as you said, we don't know really what happened to them. There could be foul play, you know, going on there, and we just, you know, don't know.
When it relates to chapter 1, I think, just so we can keep some sort of order in this, and, you know, like I said, we will be jumping kind of all over the place, but since we're still on the first chapter for the most part, when we get the flashback between Chihiro with Kunishigi and Shiba pulling up for the first time, and, you know, I've seen discussion about this in Twitter, especially back when Yura's motivations were revealed in, you know, the more recent chapters. There's this moment where Kunishigi asks Shiba, how are things in town? And Shiba says, not peaceful. So again, it kind of goes back to Hokuzono planting the seeds since the beginning of what this world really looks like, what's going on. And I really like that. It again, is one of those moments that in hindsight, or like I said, with the knowledge of what is going on now, it starts to hit, and it starts to hit different, and again, it just feels really well crafted, because it's not like Hokuzono's been pulling shit out of his ass, right? So it's little things like that.
Can I cook real quick?
Go ahead.
So, you know, I brought up the fact of Hishaku talking about collecting payment for the officials. If that was the case, right, that kind of like contradicts Yura's like plan, because he's enabling this like gang of sorcerers to, like, you know, basically rule over these people, these country folk, and do all kind of horrible shit to them. So that kind of goes against what Yura wanted, right? What if Hishaku was operating on his own here? Like, what if Yura doesn't know Hishaku was like collecting this payment or whatever? We don't ever see Yura like talk about collecting money from, you know, or like the officials or anything like that. And I mean, it could just be like chapter 1, like hijinks that, you know, just to kind of establish the Hishaku's influence in the world and just how strong they are. You know, it's just kind of like a red herring type of thing.
Yeah, well, there are, like I said, there are a couple of things that obviously feel like Hokuzono's been planting the seeds since early on, while there are other things that are a bit more like they kind of make you scratch your head, you know, a little bit, because it doesn't line up one to one. Mainly, like, what I'm really referencing is more so the legacy of Kunishigi and how he was able to make the enchanted blades originally. How it's described is really that Kunishigi was able to imbue sorcery into his blades, right? And it's obviously very vague wording considering what we know now, especially what we're covering present day, or not present day, right? But again, in the Seitei War flashback with Subaru. And not to say that there is really any inconsistency, because like I said, it's clearly vague wording, intentional from Hokuzono, I feel like. But it just, you can't help but notice some things that kind of line up more than others, right?
Yeah, there is, like, I think, like I said, chapter 1 hijinks, you know, like early devices thrown out there to get the point across, in a sense, you know, to give you, because the whole point is, especially in Shonen Jump, is you got to build some intrigue in your story. So there's some things that you have to kind of introduce and make an impact, you know, so, you know, it could be a little funky, you know what I mean? Like, just how they kind of word things, or like if you actually look at like later developments, it kind of contradicts what they said, or it just, you know, it's just flat out different. And I think that's, you know, it's just kind of like one of those things to help build intrigue early, or at least some of the moments we're talking about here, you know. But you did talk about one thing I thought was crazy though, and this is like kind of on a separate tangent, but you know, talking about like the Yakuza guys interaction. It's just like really weighing on my mind is like, remember how many like theories there were like about Shiba? Obviously, for a long time, even up until the Rakuzaichi, people were like, "Oh, Shiba's the traitor." You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And I get why, because this motherfucker Shiba is just outright, and this is one of those plot devices, but it's just outright saying, "Oh yeah, that's a Kunishigi Rakuhira's kid." Like, mind you, this kid's supposed to be like a secret, and he's talking about like the enchanted blades to this like little villain, this schmuck. Like, why is he running his mouth so crazy like that?
I was gonna say, like, that's a good point, but really, I guess the way I see it is that at this point, and then again, this is something that is kind of addressed directly later in that first conversation between Shiba and Azami that we see a couple of chapters into this volume, and is that at this point, they're kind of going public. Right? Like, things have changed for them. It's been 3 years since Kunishigi has been murdered, and Chihiro has honed his skills with the enchanted blades and is now kind of like actively, you know, kind of on the hunt for the Hishaku. And so it seems like this is the point where things start getting a bit more public, in the sense of that, like, they're not just hiding in the shadows. Shiba's not just kind of getting information, like he says later on. They're pretty much just like straight up, you know, pulling up, asking questions, killing bad guys. And so I guess the only way I see it at this point is really just like, yeah, they're out of hiding. Really, they're no longer hiding.
I think the only point for it, because I mean, it's better to move in silence, you know, and I think it's like just a kind of a device Hokuzono used to inform the reader.
100%.
But it's like those like plot device, or the like device he used to kind of like inform the reader on, you know, Kunishigi Rakuhira, you know, the blade, enchanted blade, and yeah, as you brought up, he said kind of imbued the sword with sorcery or whatever, like kind of vague wording and all that. But you know, because of that, that's like the first like step, the first iteration of like people not trusting Shiba. You know, it's like it started there. They're like, man, this dude's kind of running his mouth a little too much.
Oh yeah, and I mean, we'll get into some more stuff later on in terms of like why Shiba, you know, it's not that he's not to be trusted, but there are definitely some questionable moments where you're like, what the hell, man? But yeah,
he's definitely flawed, but I mean, we have still yet to really see what exactly, you know, his upbringing looked like, or what happened to him during the war. You know, obviously we're all excited to see that, the current chapters, but he's definitely flawed as a guardian. You know, he's an enabler. We all know that. Chihiro even tells him on that train, you know, so you want to stop me? And Shiba doesn't really, you know, do nothing.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those things that is very relevant still today. I think a couple of things I want to shout out from this chapter before we keep it going, right, is the fact that Kuro, obviously we know this is the first ability we see it in action in this chapter. We also get that iconic quote from Kunishigi in terms of the mantra they live by of how katana should be wielded. There's still tools for killing people. This first chapter has really aged like fine wine. There's that panel of Kunishigi's back, which to this day is still probably one of the more impactful panels, of the whole series, really. And Hokuzono spreads, man. Hokuzono spreads have been peak since day one, like this chapter one, like it's, like I said, it's just aged perfectly, I would say. Like I said, there's things here and there that we can kind of point out, but like you said, it's really just chapter one things that you can see in any series that kind of gets 100 chapters in and is still kind of calling back to things it foreshadowed or seeds that were planted early on.
Questionable statements. It's just it's like kind of comes with the territory type of thing. And I mean, I do think in a lot, I think every series out there's like, circumstances, like that. I did want to bring up that, the panel you're talking about with Kunishige's back. Mm-hmm. I almost kind of want to wonder if that Hokuzono is going to like eventually give us a panel after everything's like kind of fully explored, where we see it turn and we see Kunishige's like face in that moment, and he's kind of like grimacing a bit, just like still dealing with the guilt. Now his son's like wants to go down that road, him just kind of like thinking about all the guilt that he lived with, because we know he carried a heavy burden on his shoulders. I mean, obviously, like, because it's painted where like his back is like something we could like follow. And another thing is, I do want to say, like you say, it aged like wine, like fine wine. It really has, because that mantra of Kunishige and like what he does, like swordsmithing, like to make these swords, and their true purpose, how he sees it. We now know he felt that way, or I guess he hasn't like outright said it, but it's more than likely looking like he felt that way, from the beginning, before the war. That's why he didn't sell a lot of swords, when we first like kind of started reading this, and after a little while and all like, the theories pick up and you start to like look at the story that, is a bit blurred to you because you don't have the information. You kind of wonder, like, did he get that after the war? Like, did the war change that? But like now we like can say comfortably that he's had that from the beginning. And it like just kind of plays into his character of, just what he went through after the war and what he shouldered in order to like still be a great dad, really, because he was there for his son every day, and he didn't treat him, or like not give his son the attention he deserved because he had his own shit going on. Like Kunishige's character has been like, I think even in just these like couple chapters of the Seitei War arc, he's like really leveled up for me in terms of like my enjoyment of him and where I place him in my favorite characters. And the beginning is just kind of like, if it just makes me feel sad for the man.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, because considering like what we know now about Kunishige, that is very much recontextualized in terms of what we know. Another thing I do want to shout out is I shouted out the spreads, is the paneling, man. Paneling, Hokuzono shows off again since chapter 1. Really creative use of panels, and how he conveys emotions through those panels. There's the panel of the people that were fighting up against the Kurogumi, being them being strung up and Chihiro's eyes looking up at them. Mm-hmm. It's all just so well done. There's also the panel where we see, or the page where we see Nishiki, I believe, which I do like the fact that we see it like mentioned in terms of like he says Nishiki like activating the power, but we don't really see what it does yet. And it's cool how Hokuzono was again setting up things since the first chapter, kind of keeping readers on edge since day one. And I do very much like how the paneling is in that page as well. So there's a lot to appreciate, like I said, since day one with this manga.
Yeah, good points. Because you could tell Hokuzono's like he's a student of manga. You know, like you could tell he appreciates like the things he takes influence of. Like he actually you know, you could tell he's a fan, and he actually is a student of the game. You know, he kind of uses like all these mechanics and like storytelling to his advantage, you know, whether it's like a Western influence or a reference that he's doing. And, you know, it's like really coming back to the beginnings of Hokuzono and seeing where he's at. It does make me get a new appreciation for him. Like on top, I've already appreciated him so much already, you know what I mean? But like just seeing like where he's come and like the things that like the story he's created, and this was like the starting point. You know, it's nice to look back on this with this kind of lens. I've never done something like this before, so it really makes me appreciate his craft and his sense of like enjoyment of creating manga. It really comes through the page, I feel like.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Also, like Kunishigi showing that he never learned to, you know, take care of the house from his young age. He never learned that shit. Yeah, he brought fish home just for Chihiro to take care of.
Yeah, that is a good point. Especially we know how he was living as a young adult. It does make sense why Chihiro had to take care of his grown ass when he was, you know, a father. That hadn't actually that hadn't clicked for me. So, but yeah, it's funny. We've gone this far kind of without barely bringing up the fish, and you know, there's the whole Kunishigi talking to the fish. He says they want to dedicate themselves to learning. I have a lot of notes when it comes to the fish, because I still think the fish is one of those things where like there's so much that has happened with Kagurabachi that a lot of that mystery is still kind of like overlooked in terms of what exactly was going on with the fish and Kunishigi. I mean, the fish end up being part of Enten. We don't really know what the hell happened there. You know, we see the fishbowl broken and some sort of something happening with the fish, and I can't help but wonder that at some point we will see that directly addressed in terms of what the relationship is there between the fish and the blade. Kunishigi himself, you know, the whole thing about the Rokuhira eyes is just, there's still so many questions. And the fish to me is still one of like the biggest mysteries.
You know, with the fish, the trauma sorcerer later on, when that trauma sorcerer makes Chihiro look back at his trauma or whatever, and he's remembering them at the dinner table. I was looking for something, sorry, I was kind of stuttering there, but you actually see the fish bowl broken in front of Kunishigi, and you see the fish just laying on the table. I never picked that up the first time. I was like, damn. And they really took out the fish, but I guess the fish are just kind of the manifestation. And I guess maybe it's more symbolic where he kind of hammered home the fish theme into Chihiro before he, that all that stuff happened. That's one of the things where, like you said, it's kind of the whole aspect of that, the fish thing with Kunishigi, or just how Kunishigi is very, I don't even know how to just how he kind of talks to the sun and all that. We don't know if he actually has a sorcery or something. There's one thing that Chihiro says, Kunishigi makes his dad makes a special katana with his unique method. And as far as we know, it's really just more about the handling of the Datanseki and all that. But that also could be talking about the veins thing that we just found out about. That parallel going back to the veins is that unique method.
Which again wasn't that unique if Subaru was also doing it, right? So it's those things that you can kind of point at. And like you said, those chapter 1 shenanigans or early chapter shenanigans, really.
Chihiro don't know everything's unique to Chihiro, because that boy barely left the house.
Mm-hmm.
That boy been a homebody.
Yeah,
and there was one thing I do want to bring back. The very first page flip, like we get the first color page is like them talking about, them two working together, forging the sword, right? And then when you do the first page flip, then we get that nice spread. And when you do that page flip, like it feels so special because that's like on the second page, it says transforms into a beautiful, strong katana, which maybe I'm looking too deep into it, but I feel like that's just like talking about Chihiro growing into like, growing into like a strong person, a strong, moral, good person, you know what I mean? More so than like the actual katana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing I did.
I guess,
yeah, go ahead.
You go ahead, bro.
I was just gonna bring up the fact in chapter 2 we kind of cut back to that sequence of when Shiba pulls up to the Rokuhira residence after it's been invaded, and Chihiro's right, he's right over, he's alongside Kunishigi's body, and he has Enten. He has Enten in his hand, and Shiba had said that Kunishige gave his life to protect Enten. I'm wondering if Kunishige, this has been discussed among readers in the community, if Kunishige fought back or not. I mean, if he did, it almost certainly wasn't with Enten, right? Because the Hishaku would have taken it, I feel like, almost certainly. So I do wonder, again, this might be something that never gets addressed, but like, how exactly did the sequence of events look like here? Because like you brought up, the trauma sorcerer also paints a very unique picture in terms of them being and them sitting down at the table getting ready to eat. And at one point, like before, I used to take that like, oh, so like that's exactly how it went down. But I'm not sure if, that really just is trauma and it is like a hallucination, and I'm not sure how literal we're supposed to take it. Because the thing about the fish as well, and you brought up the fish being in the table, it's interesting and it's kind of tricky because the fish kind of move all over the place. Like at sometimes they're like in the dinner table, sometimes they're like in a separate table next to the dinner table. And so again, none of that is neither really here nor there, but I do wonder exactly how things kind of unfolded here. And again, when it comes to the fish, in chapter 2 is when you kind of see the fish among the rubble, and there's some like lines, and something is clearly going.
Sacrificing, like Kunishige sacrificed his life or some shit.
I don't know, man. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but like, I still don't, like, I already brought this up in regards to like what exactly happened with the fish, but man, I feel like there's definitely something there when it comes to like Enten, because they forged Enten together and they had the fish, right? And then, I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's really just kind of speculation. I might just be kind of spiraling. But yeah.
One thing I do want to mention about that is like, I do think it's one of the things that is like painted a certain way just to kind of convey a point. Because like, I don't think Kunishige, got a dragon for a cloud gouger. Obviously, I'm not saying that you're saying that, but and when those black lines popped up when we first see the death and all that going on, and Chihiro kind of spiraling and all that, rightfully so, that's the only time we see like those black lines pop up on those fish, and the only time we've ever seen like the black manifestation, like something like that, is when that black spirit energy of someone's like sacrificing themselves. But like I said, it's all speculation. I just thought it was funny how it was kind of like presented like that. But you're right, they kind of showed different ways depending on like what flashback we're seeing from what POV or whatever.
Yeah, no, man. Again, there's a lot here. There's a lot here that I can't help but feel like it's so easy to overlook because the story has progressed so much, and we've gotten like bigger mysteries and bigger plot lines to kind of get into. But real ones know that like this is what good stories do. They find a way to kind of like divert your attention, and you forget about all those early mysteries that you kind of just brush off at, like you brush off as, oh, it's nothing big, and then it comes like full circle and it's like, no, it's way more important than you remember it being, or perhaps like what as important as you once thought it was, and then kind of just,
Yeah, it could be like the thing that we've been questioning. It could come back and be the answer for like another big mystery and tie-in that you're like, oh my God, you connect these things that, so many chapters, in between. It definitely is one of those like very rewarding feelings as like a reader. But there's one thing that reminded me about this moment that I kind of haven't been like thinking about, and I used to think about it a lot, is I'm really looking forward to the day Kunishige draws out that scene, that moment where Chihiro blacks out, but we get to see the conversation they have with Kunishige.
Yes,
like,
I agree.
Man, that is gonna feed the whole nation.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, this second chapter does a lot in terms of, like I said, setting, or no, I haven't really said this, but just kind of setting the stage for what we see later on, in particular the whole flashback of Kunishige getting murdered. We know that Urang is there. It's Hishaku, Urang, and what is Hokuto's puppet. We know Hokuto's puppet is the one that ends up stabbing Kunishige in the heart. We see Urang activate her sorcery right before Chihiro says he blacked out. Shiba says he rushed over, but we know that Yura says, back when he's like sitting on or when he's in the little kids park or whatever, that they struggled to get past him. And so I'm still wondering what exactly he meant, if this is the exact moment he's talking about, or if he's talking about perhaps Shiba kind of going after them at some point and then barely getting by. So again, questions still unanswered.
I've always took that as he meaning like coming up with the right circumstances to where they get a window of time without Shiba finding out, like getting around him like that way. That's kind of how I took it, but that's just how, my thought, right? Like basically like delaying, being able to get in the barrier without alerting Shiba. Like that's what they meant, but like how they do that exactly, to your point, is what we need to see.
Yeah, because
we can't wait to see. I should say.
Yeah, because this dude is like the teleporter, right? And we do see like the alarm goes off. So, the magic barrier or whatever, like it was configured to alert me to any interference. So he does get alerted. We just don't know what exactly he was doing or if something held him back. But yeah, you said, we have yet to see if there's something there.
I think they got in without breaking the barrier or alerting the barrier somehow. And then they broke it on their way out, and then that's when they were already gone. And so when they were already leaving, and when Shiba pops up, they're not there no more type thing.
Well, that's what would make sense if Shiba really is, in terms of like that, it is teleportation or whatnot.
It would be crazy if it does turn out to where they spawned, they were able to teleport in because of the fish, because we know he got the fish towards the end. You know what I mean? And it would be crazy if they got in through the barrier, but like, teleporting, like swapping places with one of the fish through sorcery or some shit. Like, like the fire teleport. That would be so wild, bro. Like the fish would be like, oh no, the biggest betrayal. Not like literally, but.
Yeah, I mean, this chapter 2 is also where we see like the one iconic panel of Kunishige alongside the 6 enchanted blades, is when he's talking to Chihiro about them. That's when really they're talking about like you have to look at the world through your own eyes and think carefully about what kind of katana it needs and why. Again, these are things that age like fine wine, and we cut to like the panel of Kunishige just dead on the ground and Chihiro's tears falling on Kunishige's cheeks. And yeah, man, they're just masterfully executed, in my opinion. I mean, we're 40 minutes into this whole discussion, and we're still for the most part still on the first 2 chapters. But
I think we could kind of jump to Sojo. But I think that does also kind of show just how much we appreciate like going back and reliving this stuff, because it's been a while since I've checked out the beginning chapters, and knowing what we know now and like seeing Chihiro go through his journey, and then looking at like him just reacting to his father's death, and like thinking about where Chihiro is now, it just resonates. Like obviously, like when you first read it, it's like sad, but like now when like it feels like we know Chihiro now, so like makes me feel for my boy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I feel that.
Well, we
I
could
feel
talk
that.
about Sojo, getting introduced, in a bath. Obviously, of course, it wouldn't be right if it, wasn't a bath. And he has a raw entrance, even with his cheeks out.
So you just want to jump all the way to Sojo, huh?
Yeah, I guess we could talk more about Char. We could, go there first, and then let that segue into Sojo. I just don't want to hold this episode up for
No,
2 hours, and I know you seem a little
No.
sick.
I hear you. But no, I still think we could kind of run through some of the events. I do just want to shout out Hideout giving us the first fourth wall break. First fourth wall break of the series, really.
Oh yeah, true. That's right. That's a good call. I forgot all about that.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. She knows Shiba, but she didn't know that he was connected to Kunishigi. She knows who Kunishigi is, but she didn't know that Shiba was connected to him. She only finds out once he was murdered, right? And that's when they kind of when they have that poster on the wall, or that page on the wall about Hishaku information wanted, and it's when we see, like, in terms of timeline wise, Chihiro for the first time after his father's death, bro, and the change in demeanor, especially with like the scar in his face, bro is looking like a demon. Mm-hmm. And it's just really good stuff. And like you said, Char pulls up soon after, and yeah.
Yeah, by the way, it's crazy that boy Madoka, the Daruma sorcerer, he really just nuked that restaurant. There was other people in that bitch too.
Yeah. I mean, looking for Char, yeah, that dude Madoka.
No hesitation.
Yeah.
And then she was trying to save him.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, like you pointed out before we started recording, that boy Shiba was knocked out sleeping during all that. So hey.
Yeah, Shiba, I don't get it, man. Like, I don't even hate on him like all that much, but it's just some, like I said, just some questionable moments, man.
Yeah, it makes it easy to like really side eye him. Like, bro, help yourself out a little bit.
Yeah, meanwhile, Chihiro's like, he's like the best, man. You see, even Shiba acknowledges how he is with people. He's good at looking after people. We see how he treats Char off the jump, even though they don't really believe the story she's telling. At first, they're kind of like skeptical or whatever, and Chihiro's still kind of treating her,
Yeah.
And like you said, Madoka pulls up and.
My bad.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I'll say, he even like calls out, like thinking that she still isn't right, like being real. Like at the restaurant before Daruma like interrupts. Like he still went to go feed her just because he could recognize that she was, starving. Like he's a good person. He recognized that like you can't just question a child,
Yeah, no, and like you said, Madoka's presence is kind of like what starts changing everything, because that's when he's like, okay, so she wasn't lying. There was somebody looking for her, somebody after her, and that's when he's like,
cloud gouger. She's like, the cloud pops out, and that's when he's like, oh shit, okay.
Yes, once she mentions the cloud, that's when he knows. But like when Madoka shows up, that's when he's kind of starts like, and he says, I'm sorry, I doubted you, really. But yeah, the mentioning of the cloud is just kind of what seals it for him, really.
Yeah, because Daruma is like, for some reason, he's really yelling, talking shit to a child. Like he's saying some like hurtful ass things, some hard ass things. And it's like, man, Shiba, why are you trying to save this dude? He's over here like rubbing it in the girl's face that her parents died, protecting her.
Yeah, man, this is also like very well done. I didn't really, looking back at this Madoka Chihiro fight, I could definitely appreciate it a bit more. Because like how you kind of talked about Hishaku early on is really how I felt about Madoka. Like you just know he's really like fodder, even though he states himself that he's a supreme sorcerer, and even though Chihiro hasn't really owned his skills entirely, which is something that's addressed multiple times in this volume in terms of Chihiro being green or being immature or not having mastered the enchanted blade yet, because like the first couple of sorcerers he goes up again, being Madoka and the puppet sorcerer, they're not impressed, right? But we know that Chihiro is holding back at first against Daruma here. But like you said, man, the stuff he starts saying to Char, I think that's when like obviously we saw the emotional, like how emotional the story can get when it comes to like Kunishige's death and Chihiro's whole mission. But now seeing it with Char, I think it again like re-emphasizes that and kind of like hammers that idea down, and it's really like the whole reason. I don't want to say the whole reason, but it's really when you first see Chihiro kind of relate to somebody. At least the way I remembered, it always feels like Hakuri is the first guy that Chihiro kind of meets, and he starts kind of like reflecting on his own life once he meets Hakuri and like what he came, the situation that he came up in, even if it's entirely different from his own, because in Hakuri's case, he had his father. It just so happened that he was a dick. But when Daruma tells Char that she's all alone or something along those lines, you can really see Chihiro kind of like, reflect on that, or like how it kind of like impacts him. And he goes up to her later on as well, and he thinks of that line, and don't forget you're all alone. And we see like the ... and he looks down, and you just know he's thinking about Kunishige. You just know that he's relating to that. And that's when he's like, he just completely devotes himself to protecting her, just because they have like their interests align, and yeah.
And there's this one, like during that fight, there's this one page I think of specifically, and like Daruma's shouting, of the horrible death your mother suffered while trying to protect you. And then we see like Char's like face, she looks sad, and it's like a quick cut panel of her thinking of her mom, and her mom saying Char. Then it's Daruma again with his mouth wide the fuck open. He says, "There's never been such a meaningless and pathetic death. Remember that." And then we see the quick cut panel of Kunishige, and then we see Chihiro's eyes in the next panel. Like quick, fast cutting pace. Like I can imagine it in the anime, going beat by beat. And it's like, as you mentioned earlier, like the paneling and all that, and the presentation, I think is really strong in this fight, because we see like Chihiro, obviously he isn't going to forget Kunishige, but we see Chihiro kind of think back on like his dad. We also see like Hokuzono's usage of like a panel of just someone's eyes or hands. They convey a lot of emotion, and Hokuzono uses that to his advantage. And this is like the first inkling of that.
Yeah, no, hey, that's a very good point. He does immediately think of Kunishige when he hears Daruma saying that. That's a very good shout. And yeah, I do also want to say that, like, I think this is, for me at least, really the first time that we see Chihiro kind of moving like a superhero. And the reason I say that is because you just see Char like in awe of him, and she was like, that's why I told you to hold tight. And like her eyes is just like completely in awe, and we get we cut to that one panel of like the explosions behind him, and he's just looking badass. It's like you just know that this dude is the closest thing to a superhero in this world. And yeah, cool, man, I've said this before. Yeah, I mean, I've said this before. This guy's like Batman, man. Obviously he wields a katana and he kills and whatnot, but this guy is him, man. I love Chihiro, honestly.
Yeah, Chihiro is a very fun MC to like just watch through his journey, and it's so funny. Like he thinks he's got Chihiro. I keep mixing up their names for some reason, but he thinks he has Chihiro like trapped, and Chihiro's eyes like there again, another panel of just his eyes, and he just looks basically dull. Like he's like, "Oh, you think you got me?" He's like so disinterested because he's like Akka, invincible, and blows his ass up. And then that's when we see Char's eyes kind of like look up in awe, like it's just the panel of her two eyes in between like the Daruma dolls. And that's when Chihiro's like drops to the ground with the explosion in the sky, like you were talking about. Like that sequence of events is just like, I cannot wait to see this in the anime, man. Like it's such a small moment technically, but like it has a lot of the mechanics and a lot of like what makes Hokuzono's like fights fun, the core, not fun, but like, fun, but like enjoyful. Bro, I cannot fucking talk today.
Bro,
But you
you're
know what
good.
I mean.
Yeah.
Um,
You're good, man.
but like I really like this action sequence against Daruma, even though it's something so small. You know what I mean? Or in terms of like who he is in the story.
Yeah, no, but it really works. Like I said, I definitely appreciate that fight a lot more, even though there isn't a whole lot to it. Looking back on it now, it's I definitely appreciate it a lot more because it is really the first time that we see Chihiro moving like that and his devotion to protecting people, really. And you shouted out Hokuzono's ability to convey things in simple paneling. That's something that we get in the chapter that follows as well, chapter 5. Post that fight, he goes out to get Char some food because she's hungry again.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Sojo's cheeks. My bad.
No, we'll get to Sojo's cheeks in a minute. No, but like it's his hands shaking. It's his hands shaking when he's driving, and obviously at this point he's starting to get burnt out. And I do like how Hokuzono transitions from his hands shaking while he's driving to his hands shaking as he's kind of holding on to Madoka's tie, right? And that's when Shiba realizes and decides to step in, one of the few times he does that, right? And he's like, leave old cylinder head to me, go get some rest or whatever. And I also want to shout out like the dynamic between Chihiro and Char, which obviously off the jump, like Char is a very charismatic and very personable young child, especially considering the situation she's in, and I do like how her personality really meshes with Chihiro's. They just like they bounce off each other really well, and is like really fun to see. And he now is like the way he now also like excuses her basically getting in the car, sneaking into the car with Chihiro. I really like that. So yeah, and like you said, then Shiba talking to Madoka, kind of giving an opportunity to redeem himself. Yeah,
and we still don't know what Shiba's like sorcery is. Crazy.
Well,
like, it's so funny that everything that. My bad. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You finish your thought before I get into this.
No. You go this time.
Okay. Well, the reason I interjected there was like you mentioned Shiba's sorcery, and like one of the notes I took here is that when he's interrogating Madoka, he steps on his foot, right? And we see, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the only time, or at least that I can remember, the only time that we see like the teleportation signature lines or whatever you want to call it, but he doesn't teleport. Like all he does is really step on Madoka's shoe, and it just kind of like cracks the whole ground under him, and we know that he ends up kind of like pretty much planting Madoka's whole, like both of his feet. By the time he's done with him, he ends up like planting both of his feet underground. And I couldn't help but wonder again if this is like Hokuzono teasing a bit of like this could just be like spirit energy, it could just be like strength, I get it, but usually when we see that signature, it is like him activating his teleportation ability. So yeah, is there more to Shiba's sorcery, right? That was all.
Is it like that was like the biggest like question mark I had like for Shiba for the longest time was, because even up until recently, like in the fight against Yura, wielding the Magatsumi against Chihiro and Samura, there's like a panel specifically I think of, and it's not the first or not the like first couple images we see of Shiba in that fight where he's like telling Samura to focus, but it's like the chapter after that we see like a full body image of him, or a panel of him, and he got his like fingers up doing the mudra hand sign, and you see like the little teleportation marks kind of coming from him, and it's like those same marks. And like with Shiba, I just don't know. Like I literally don't know if maybe he just doesn't have a sorcery, because like I could sit here and fumble over my words trying to like put it into words what I think, but the truth is like Hokuzono is keeping that secret very close to his chest. Those cards he isn't showing to anybody. He's having us guess if it's just him being, using spirit energy better than anybody could use it, which could very well be the case, and that seems like the most likely thing. Or if there's something else behind that might have been there the whole time. It's just very like subtle. or just a big secret. Maybe he's Kashimo. One day, that'd be insane. But no, you got me thinking about Sheba now. I still can't believe Sheba trying to save Daruma, man. And like people are gonna sit here and tell me that this is their goat. Come on. I gotta throw some jabs at Sheba, but yeah, Sheba's like, I ain't gonna lie, in the beginning, Sheba looks, and maybe it's a first impression that kind of left a mark on me so much with Sheba, because Sheba has done like, obviously important things. He's made big moves in the series. I'm not gonna act like he didn't. I'll throw jabs at him, but objectively, he has came in clutch more than once.
Yes.
But like this first impression of Sheba still is just bad in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's just not that not the most responsible like adult, right? He's not the type of adult you really look up to.
Or like, well, the sense of like him giving out so much information early, like just kind of being a blabbermouth. Like, it's just like small things. It's just like a couple small things that like just was like left a weird taste in my mouth that I remember when I first read it. I was just like, yeah, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah.
Hey, but Chihiro does owe him a car.
Yeah, I guess so, right? I guess
they
so.
don't even trip about that. When are we gonna see Chihiro drive again?
I mean, Sheba owes him a father. I'm just saying, but
shit! I ain't never heard Dice throw some shit like that out. That's gonna open up the fucking episode now. That's the first. Oh my God, Dice, I'm dead. You caught me off guard with that. I don't even think I could Sheba slander that hard. Like, I don't think I could slander Sheba that hard. I mixed up the words. Sheba. I don't think I could Sheba slander. Y'all, you said it was in the dad, bro. Oh my God.
I'm not lying though.
Yeah,
and hey, like I said, I got nothing against Sheba.
I don't know about that, but he got something against you now. Nah, but you might be cooking.
Yeah.
When he dies, he'll be staring. He'll be looking up at us.
Oh man. But like you brought up just before we get into Sojo, I do really like. I know I talked about Char and Chihiro's dynamic, but the fact that this dude goes out of his way. I'm sorry. To I'm forgetting the word here, but like he gets, he's spoiling. He's spoiling Char, bro. Like they stop at like 3 different places just so she can have, just so she can get some food, get some, get ice cream, get a smoothie. It's
what
so
that
cool,
poor
man.
girl went through, she deserves it, bro. Don't go for Char like you did for Sheba.
No, I'm not.
Dice is like, yo, she deserves the $1 menu, and that's it.
No. I'm just more so speaking to like how Chihiro really is that guy, man. Like,
yeah.
It's like Sheba says, he's really good at looking after people, man.
Or like she said, today I'm happy, and you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like she didn't think she'd be able to live a happy life, and like Chihiro just going out of his way to give her like these small little things, but they mean so much considering what that poor girl went through, and like, she lost her mom, and not only that is she's been going through getting tortured, and like it shows that like Chihiro can make these connections with people. That's what I'll be real, because Chihiro is like a superhero. He has this like unique ability that it makes people want to follow him.
Oh yeah.
And it's because like he's logical, like they mention like, he's he doesn't smile much or whatever, but he is like logical, and he does care for people. It's just when his dad died, a part of him died too. He lost a chunk of his heart. And you can't expect a 15-year-old kid to really move on from that, like in the real world, and then put him in this position where now you got to go fight for your life with swords. Where, I mean, like he's choosing to do that, but it's still like you definitely gotta just like feel for Char and Chihiro. They're both like broken individuals that are like. I think it does also help Chihiro out. We don't really see it, but I can also kind of see it mattering to him, like maybe later in the story where he calls back these moments. And he's like, Char, it made me feel good to be able to like care for somebody and help be there for them and make sure that they're fed, because that's what he did for his dad. He really had to like babysit Kunishigi.
Yeah, man. Like, definitely. I think you're on the money with that in regards to like Chihiro, because, you know, despite that, I guess I always saw him like this whole like Chihiro Char dynamic. I really, at least, you know, the way I remember it now, I always just like saw it as like, you know, him protecting her. But it's been a minute since I really reflected on how much of himself he sees in Char, right? And again, it's the first kind of character that we see that, you know, we see that dynamic between the two. And it really works, man. It really works. It's one of the things that gets me excited for, you know, hopefully Char reappearing in the story soon. And, you know, whether there's a time skip or not, it's going to be interesting to see how much she has grown. And, you know, that dynamic is very underrated in my opinion. Again, because there's been so many more characters introduced. This is kind of like, you know, it's not really talked about too much, but it's one of the dynamics I'm really looking forward to seeing again, hopefully.
Yeah, and I do think that Hokuzono could, you know, because he has slowed the pace a bit, it feels like, in this most recent chapter. And I hope he does choose to, like, you know, obviously not saying that the whole story needs to come to like a screeching halt once he gets back to present time, but I hope he does kind of like slows the pace down in those transition chapters. You know, we don't have to immediately jump to the next battle after an arc ends, like we've kind of like did after, you know, Sojo the Rakuzaichi. Like, think about it, when part 1 ended, Sojo was only dead for a month. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I do think that one thing Hokuzono could be better about is like giving these moments with like Char and Chihiro, you know, to kind of, you know, like flush out that dynamic a bit more. It may not mean much in the grand scheme of like the battle against the Magatsumi, but for like Chihiro as a character, you know, like I think it would you know, do well.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean,
she's gonna be instrumental in the series, obviously, because like her healing ability. I just don't want her to only pop in when it's time to heal. You know
Agreed.
what I mean? She deserves more than that. And I'm sure
Agreed.
Hokuzono will, you know, let Hokuzono cook.
Yeah. I mean, I guess now is really the time to, and you know, we did talk about his entrance a bit, but like this is where like Sojo now kind of starts to loom. You know, his presence starts to loom over the story, as, you know, after he's introduced and with that crazy double spread and, like you said, cheeked up. You know, he doesn't
double
really like the way I think about it and the way I've always seen it. Like, to me, his real entrance comes a bit later in what is ultimately the last chapter of the volume, which we'll get into a bit. But like, we know he's out there. We know what he looks like. We know what he's capable of. You know, he's this big shot in the underworld. And so, like, that's the first chapter when it really starts to feel like we're building towards something bigger, and that bigger has a face, right? And that face is Sojo.
Ugly face.
Ugly, yeah. But you know, before that, he gets jumped by the puppet sorcerer. Like you said, he ends up owing Shiba a car. But I do think this fight against the puppet sorcerer and the trauma sorcerer is like the visuals is pretty creatively done. It's pretty solid. I think we get the Kyonagi name reveal for the first time in, you know, when Sojo broadcasts like the information, kind of, I guess, putting a bounty on his head, really, on their head. We see kind of Char Kyonagi on the TV screen, and so that's when like we find out about the Kyonagi soon after that. But again, it's Hokuzono's ability to kind of slowly build towards things. So yeah, I guess I'll kind of let you get into like this whole fight against the puppet sorcerer and trauma sorcerer.
Well, you kind of brought up, like, we see, you know, in this chapter, which is chapter 5, we see Sojo's like first, you know, entrance into the series. Oh yeah. And I do think there is like, because he's the one who puts the, you know, because that reveal comes before the fight with the trauma sorcerer and all that. Yes. And when I think it's very telling, though, a lot that we see here. Obviously, like the whole bath gimmick thing, like we know he likes his baths which is cool. But like when you really look at it, it's like his demeanor is like a boss. We know he's been he's been basically blacklisted for 10 years. Now we know the Kabunabi's got some dogs like Ichiki, Azami, Izuru, like, you know what I mean? They got
fuck was they doing?
Hiyuki, like, so this dude's been like eluding them for 10 years, which is, you know, without the Cloud Gouger, mind you. So like that we see is like how he deals with things, you know, like he's very like, oh, if you have a job, do it to its full, you know, until it's done type of thing.
Oh yeah.
You know, that guy would just begging to be killed just because just because he went and told them what happened. Mind you, the information that he gave Sojo is what enabled him to be able to put out a description of what Chihiro looked like with the scar and all that. You know what I mean? So like the dude still helped them out, but he's still like torturing them. And then like the tattoos that Sojo has, like he's still like, you know, that could be a thing. You know, so all that I just think was, and it came in the right time at the story as well, because we know like, you know, a lot of people thought it was not really getting nowhere, but like the inclusion of Sojo here, people, you know, tend to think that it saved it from getting the axe, which I think is kind of a little disingenuous, because there's series that go for 30 some chapters and don't get axed, or get axed in like 30-40 chapters. But you know, I just thought like Sojo's like, you know, first time seeing him was pretty dope, all things considered. But I agree with you, like his first entrance into the series is at the end of the volume. I mean, the presentation of the fight with this like you know, the clone sorcerer and the trauma sorcerer, like the swirling whirlpool, and how that guy used all those clones to, you know, kind of hide the trauma sorcerer, allowing him to get close to hit Chihiro with his ability. Like, that was all well done. It's also cool to see the clone sorcerer talk about the war.
Yes.
You know, that's the thing that's like everyone's going to talk about in this like you know, scuffle, because we know that they're not a threat to Chihiro, but it's just the fact that there's this guy, like, we know dirtbags like him, you know, like everyone had to fight in the war for like the sake of Japan, obviously, even the criminals. It's these types of guys that, you know, most likely were the ones to like ruin people like Yura and his wife's life.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you said, the way this guy talks about witnessing the Enchanted Blades is definitely noteworthy. That's when we get the iconic panel of the Seitei War that to this day is still kind of being looked at under a microscope.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because, you know, like people have pointed out, you can see a lot of the Enchanted Blades abilities, you know, like you see the ice, you see the lightning, there's even some stuff that is like still unexplained today, you know, like the claws, the chains. There's definitely like a lot going on here, but again, this is all really to say and talk shit about how like the way Chihiro's wielding Enten pales in comparison to what that guy witnessed, right? And even says, or perhaps this one wielder is merely still immature. And so I do like how even at this point where we have no idea what the Enchanted Blades are capable of in terms of like their ceiling, we don't know about the True Realm yet. We don't know about like just really how powerful they are. Hokuzono does a really good job of letting us know, like, whatever you're seeing here, it ain't shit. You know, like, you haven't seen nothing yet. And we know how Chihiro ends up, like, cooking these dudes, right?
Yeah.
So,
and, you know, one thing, like, you know, this guy's, like, talking shit to Chihiro and saying, you know, he's not built like that. And to be honest with you, he's right. Chihiro's got a long way to go. Even though he's been wielding his blade longer than the other Enchanted Blade wielders, you know, we find out that, you know, mastery of the sword is, you know, goes hand in hand. So it's like, you know, I really like seeing this as like the start off point for Chihiro compared to like where he is, say at the end of the hotel, a completely different fighter, completely different level.
100%.
And it's such in a short time.
Yeah. And, you know, they pose some sort of challenge at first, right? Especially with that trauma sorcerer kind of taking advantage of the opening provided by the by the clone or puppet sorcerer, whatever we want to call him. Like we said, we talked about that one flashback with Kunishigi. These moments start to hit a lot more because Hokuzono has done a good job of not just kind of like adding Char to the mix, but again, like the paneling to convey the emotions is so well done here, because we see the image of him next to his father's corpse get bigger compared to the image of him eating with his father, which gets smaller. And man, just brilliant from Hokuzono, kind of like, again, conveying that emotion.
It's like that reality's getting the reality of him losing his father compared to the memory of him eating with his father. It's, the reality setting in as like the memory fades away. That's a very good point. And like the trauma sorcerer, he has him on his knees for a minute there, and we see like the trauma sorcerer just straight up break Char's leg. That's when they talk about the Kyonagi clan. The myth of the Kyonagi clan's flesh making you immortal is pure nonsense according to this guy. Like you said, the other guy was like, shall we eat her? And it's like, damn, like, yeah, like these guys are savages, right? And the trauma sorcerer talks about how like the Kyonagi clan were basically wiped out because of a bogus claim. And so like, the note that I put here is like, is that really why they were wiped out? Because if so, like, let's just say it was, like, that's wild and pretty fucking tragic if you ask me, right? Because like, it just speaks to like the level of savageness or savagery and like just how dark these criminals really are and what they're willing to do just for shit like that. I mean, sorcery is barely known in this world. Only, people from the city have been really exposed to it. That's where most sorcerers are located. And it's just crazy the type of stuff they'd be willing to do off rumors, right? But yeah, that's dark implications.
100%, and that's when we get like Char's healing ability, and yeah, I'll let you kind of take over from here.
Yeah, you talked about the paneling, like once, it's super cool because like that edginess of Chihiro that we love so much in the beginning, where he's like, you just made the reason clear, fam. This is what drives me. This ain't gonna break me. This is what drives me. And it's so funny, the paneling, because we see the trauma sorcerer scream and then his head's just lopped off. And like the fluid motion, like the action sequence of the moment, his head's just not like centered. It's kind of off because his head, is kind of like flowing with the trail, his Nishiki trail off the page to the other one. Like very fun paneling. That one, and then when you flip the page to the next double spread where you see like him just like cutting everyone up around him. It's an insane moment. And man, like we see as well, like in the continue on, because there's like, what is it, 2 double spreads back to back to end the chapter, and it says if you want the kid to live, you better, and then the guy is already dead.
Shut your ass up.
Like, and then the sandwich thing with Char, like, and this is where she, because she wanted to tell Chihiro finally, but then he got interrupted by this. So like, now, like, Chihiro knows what's going on, and he realizes that she did want to open up to him. So like,
yes, true.
He wasn't trying to like, spoil her rotten just to get information out of her. Of course, that's, he wanted, but he already had enough to at least protect her for now. He wasn't trying to push her or like just persuade her for the hell of it. He was genuinely taking care of her. And so like, that's why she was ready to open up to him. But those dickheads, pulled up and interrupted them. And of course, some more dickheads pulled up, but at least the zombie's here to settle this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we get the zombie intro.
Got traitor allegations too early on.
Oh my god, yeah, man, yeah. And again, like kind of like looking back on it, I mean, we only really see him in these last 2 chapters in regards to this conversation of this volume. But it's noteworthy here that like he wasn't even using his sorcery, like, and we know that what his sorcery kind of consists of now. He could have easily use his sorcery here. It would more or less kind of look the same when you think about it, but like, nah, this was pure dexterity, right?
And he didn't have any change, bro.
He smoked these guys, man. You know, he took some damage as well, but just kind of like walked through it like it's nothing.
Yeah, and they talk about his civilian clothes. He must have at least be a colonel. You know, which we know he did rise up at, until when he was like 18 or whatever, or at a young age. I can't remember if they actually specified if it was 18 or not.
Yeah.
And we also see like him and Sheba's like, I didn't remember Sheba had like that kind of reaction to Azami. Like,
me neither.
More of like, but he was really like not fucking with Azami pulling up. Like he don't have an issue with Azami specifically, but just that organization that Azami works for. But
yeah,
it's that whole thing. I mean, we still need this Seitei War flashback talking about it again, but I think that shows you how like solid the story has been in terms of like keeping us engaged and like seeing these relationships. We've been waiting so long, and we're getting to the point of seeing these like guys before the war, you know what I mean? And we haven't like got tired of the the shtick. We're still like more than ever like engaged with like the story and like these like dynamics and character relationships. Even though we've been waiting 115 chapters, we aren't tired of it yet.
Oh no, I mean, and this chapter is pretty big in the sense that this is the chapter where we find out that Sheba was in the Kamunabi. We find out that a few of the Kamunabi don't only like just know about Chihiro. I completely forgot that like a few of the Kamunabi actually know about the 7th Enchanted Blade. So I'm wondering who those Kamunabi are. And again, I don't know if this is one of those little plot holes that we brought up earlier in this conversation, because if it was Kazan, who was one of the guys that knew where Kunishigi was at, if he knew about the Enchanted Blade, you would think that he would have told the Hishaku about the 7th Enchanted Blade, right? And so, yeah, again, not to really kind of spend too much time on this, but it is interesting that we do find out that a few of the Kamunabi knew about both Chihiro and the 7th Enchanted Blade. This is the chapter where we also get the Rakuzaichi mentioned for the first time, as well as the Shinuchi. And it's also Yura's first appearance. So it's like a lot to this chapter, It's like it's really a lot.
Se, but he's kicking it in the Infinity Castle.
Yeah, there's also that whole thing, right? Like, what's up with that whole like dimension, space, whatever? Like, there's still questions surrounding that. Like, what the hell was up with that?
Yeah, and like Yura is just like, tell Sojo, give your report. And he's like, is this meeting really necessary? He's like, report. Like, Yura is just like, now we know about Yura, and he has like, he wanted to like get rid of the Rakuzaichi, and getting rid of Sojo is like a big thing in this world, because we know like he's a weapons dealer, like they say in control of Japan, a weapons dealer, and he was able to remove him from play and the Rakuzaichi. So you're having a disdain for dealing with Sojo. Obviously, of course, we know there's like the conflicting things of giving him like the cloud gouger and all that, but it would make sense for Yura to have a disdain of talking to Sojo, and it does feel that in that short little back and forth. But one thing I wanted to tell you though is there is a panel that basically shows like which Kabunabi members knew where Kunishigi lived. Now we don't know which ones knew about the 7th Enchanted Blade, but and plus Kazan gave up Kunishigi's location, so we know he didn't know about the 7th Enchanted Blade. But I like the big dude with the eye patch, Ichiki, Azami, Kazan, they for sure knew where Kunishigi lived. I have to like look for that panel later.
No, I know. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about. That's a good point. Yeah.
So but we still don't know. To be honest with you, I don't think any of them, aside from Azami, knew the 7th Enchanted Blade. It could just be one of those like early story shenanigans types of things, or Ichiki might have. Not sure. But we'll probably find that out, if anything, like in the Seitei War flashback.
Yes,
And
because it's actually Azami, the one who says, not even all the leaders of the Kamunabi know about the Chihiro and the existence of the seventh enchanted blade. Only the few who were helping Rokuhira hide. So yeah, he could be talking about himself. That's a good point. Like he could be, but the way he says it, again, this is translation, right? You never know, but it does imply, yes, that it's at least somebody else other than him. Hey, maybe it's Yatsuru, right? You don't know.
Yeah, well, like she's the one, the biggest question marks, man. Like, I don't really care about finding out anything else on the other ones. Like, she's a white robe. That's one that I hope Hokusana flushes out a bit. But cutting back to like the Azami thing with Shiba, it's so like, does this dude Azami just have that picture of him, Kunishigi, and Shiba as his wallpaper?
Yeah, man. Again, that's how we like it like really lets us know just how important Kunishige was to him, or like what he meant to him, right? And that friendship that the three of them had, that they at least go way back, and he looks at that like right after he tells Chihiro to like leave Sojo to us, leave Sojo in the auction to us, and Chihiro's just like, got it. And he's like, what a bald-faced lie. Like, he just knows that Chihiro's like just in one, in through one ear, out the other, right? And even she was like, and she was like, you're talking to a brick wall, right? And all Azami does is just kind of look at the image, and that's all he needs to do. It's just kind of all he needs to do to like, stand his ground and just kind of let things slide and trust in Chihiro, while at the same time he takes care of business on his end. Right, and
what's
that's
crazy is Azami. At this point, Azami could take that blade away from Chihiro.
Oh yeah,
Azami. We know Azami's about that shit. And like, one thing we kind of didn't mention, about like Chihiro fighting the clone sorcerer and the trauma sorcerer. I mean, obviously we know, but we didn't bring it up. He was fatigued, there. Like he was supposed to be resting at that time. He still hasn't like recovered from all his like couple other skirmishes. So like, that also played into him getting caught by the trauma sorcerer, I'm sure. But either way, not that matters anything.
No, but that's a good point. That's a good point, yeah.
And now we're leading into like the final chapter of the volume.
Oh yeah.
And Shiba's telling him like, bro, take it easy. Like, don't just chill.
For like the third time, settle down, get some rest, relax.
Like, bro, calm. And this is where we see Daruma's, him with his hair down. He don't got the flat top up no more. Fucking Shiba's over here crumbling his feet, trying to save him. He's like, help me, help you.
I do think this moment is very well done. It does add a little bit of characterization to Shiba. Just a bit, not too much. But in terms of Madoka, I do like what is done here, even though it's nothing crazy, pretty simple, right? Like, it's just a typical, I don't want to say typical, but just a little sob story for a villain who's trying to redeem himself. But let's be honest, all this is really just a huge setup for what I think, and this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier. This is what I feel is Sojo's real entrance in the story. Because it kind of separates a bad guy like Madoka, like Daruma, right? Which is, like you talked about, the things he said to Char, like he's definitely not a good guy. But this is where you kind of
in with at least like 5 or 6 other people in it, and they for sure got cooked.
Yeah,
but this was like a day or two ago.
Yeah, and this is kind of like a Slim Shady reference, but this is really where bad meets evil. Because Sojo just completely separates himself from from this guy. And this is where he says that quote that you brought up, which to me is still one of the best villain quotes in the whole story. If you've chosen a path in life, at least commit one measly lifetime to it. And it really captures Sojo's whole personality and what he stands for as a character, because we know exactly how Sojo goes out, and that's exactly how he goes out, really. When you consider that he literally got his hands on the Datsenseki and it cost him his life, right? But to me, this is just peak, man. This is just peak.
I never really looked at it like that, because I looked at this moment as like, oh, this is a moment to really like show just how imposing Sojo is. But it really is like a separation of like a villain halfway in, half out, half in, half out type villain, compared to someone who's like, they're moving to like a different beat, or they're setting the pace. They are, like, this is who they are. This is their life. There isn't no going back. There isn't no like making amends for other people, or like rekindling relationships. Like he's just doing what he does. And the way he killed Daruma is crazy too, because not only did he basically made Daruma to kill his sister.
Yes.
That's like the separation.
Yes. We do get a little tease of the Yui ability, right? Because he does seem to like freeze Daruma right before Daruma just completely like kamikazes himself here. But like you said, he says that woman, she was just unconscious, she's still alive, and Daruma ends up killing his own sister, which is just real evil shit, man. Real evil shit here.
Yeah, imposing. And there's that panel, his eyes, like these deaths are the cost of not finishing your work. Like that panel of his eyes, like, man, it's like, it gives him like a kind of gravitas. Like, it's just, his panel presence is just skyrockets from this chapter, because he is also like, you see the parallels with Chihiro here, because like the trauma sorcerer's got a brother, and he's thinking shit's sweet that he's gonna traumatize Sojo, and Sojo's like, nah, it don't, like, that shit don't work on me like that. Like, I am trauma. I was molded by the trauma.
Yeah, no, actually, I'm glad you bring that up, because I got a couple of notes on that too. Like, it does two things. In the way I see it, it does two things here. It establishes like a very weird parallels between both Chihiro and Sojo, while at the same time it kind of like represents them being on a collision course, right? Because like you said, these trauma sorcerer brothers, they both got not just smoked by Chihiro and Sojo respectively, but both got decapitated. Right, because you can see little bro's head on top of what is it, a trash can or something? Some like
a pop, like a Funko Pop or some shit.
Yeah, bro. So I do really like that, man, because Chihiro, while he was protecting Char and doing it in self-defense, Sojo was just doing it to get the blood pumping. Right? But again, it kind of represents them both being on this collision course. And again, the duality of the enchanted blades and wielding a katana. And, from there, Sojo just pulls up, He says, fuck it, I'll do it myself. Really? That's what he said a couple of chapters ago.
Man, and it's crazy, because obviously we'll touch on this more next episode when we cover volume 2. But, like, just the fact of Sojo coming there, and he's just like not worried about Char or anything. He's literally like just there to like go blow to blow, enchanted blade versus enchanted blade, and the world has never seen that before. So this fight is like, so adds so much like cause for worry in the world of two enchanted blades clashing in a public setting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even in the war, there was no worry because they were fighting in vacant areas. Obviously, like people getting, backing up when as the Shikoku warriors started to, encroach on Japan. Like it was just vacant lands they were fighting on. But here, I don't want to talk about it because we'll talk about it next episode, but
yes.
it really, there's a very like interesting way. Like if I was reading just like the physical volumes and I had to wait for volume 2, like I'm watering at the mouth. I'm like, I cannot wait to see this fight. Like, we don't see really nothing from Sojo but like his nature.
Yeah, no, and again, it's like it's the contrast between him and Chihiro as well, because we also get that panel, or like both panels of Chihiro's eyes, and then Sojo's like, face and his eyes as well, and like it couldn't be more different, right? And Chihiro had asked him, "Is your sword stained with the blood of evildoers?" He's like, "I don't give a fuck about that." And Chihiro's like, "Bet," and that double spread of
like, I just killed I just killed some trauma sorcerer out there. Does that count? If it was Shiba there, Shiba would probably be like, you know what? That's right. Let's try and change him.
Dude, you know, real quick about Shiba, because I forgot to bring this up earlier. You have to think that Shiba knew what would have happened to Madoka. Like, he didn't give him no protection or nothing. He just said, like, yo, go try again. Live a good life. He ain't help him, bro. He pretty much gave him the death sentence.
He's like, what if you turn good and you just like abandoned all your ties to the underworld?
That won't cost you.
Mind.
Yeah, like come
They'll
on.
Understand. Just tell them you miss your mom and sister.
This Shiba
Everyone's
like
got a mom. They'll understand.
Oh man, you know, one thing before I forget as well is Char's reaction to seeing Sojo, like her eyes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Her eyes are big as fuck.
Ooh, like not even when Madoka was talking all that shit, you know?
Yeah. Like, but Sojo really puts that fear in him.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing before we get out of here. You know, there is a little bonus comic I do want to kind of touch on before we get out of here. But I had taken some notes on Sojo, and we had talked about this in one of the more recent episodes of the Seitei War flashback, where we talked about how like Kunishigi is introduced kind of similar to Sojo in the sense of like they're both introduced as weapons dealers. Looking back now and knowing what we know of Kunishigi in the most recent chapters that are currently being released and what we know of Sojo, I did take some notes in terms of like the differences between the two, because both are introduced as weapon dealers, but Kunishigi is not known like at all, right? Because of his moral code, while Sojo is known far and wide, and he's, like I said, this big shot in the underworld, right? Kunishigi is a swordsmith while Sojo really isn't, right? Kunishigi has a code while Sojo is a criminal, right? And this is nothing really too crazy, but it's interesting because both are kind of like introduced similarly, and Sojo is really the only one who came close to Kunishigi in terms of stabilizing Datsenseki, right? And so like I really, you know, knowing what we know now, right, in hindsight, I do enjoy like very much how Sojo is presented and how he rivals not just Chihiro but also Kunishigi. To me, Sojo is one of these characters that just kind of like ages better and better and better, and to this day still one of my favorite characters in the whole series. So I didn't want to bring that up, even though it is, you know, nothing crazy, something minor, but I can't help that, you know, but think that it is intentional from Hogazono's part.
Yeah, I mean, we seen Sojo's cheeks. We haven't seen Kunishige's cheeks yet.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
But you know, I think like the thing with Sojo is following or took inspiration from the legend of like the Kunishigi the world comes to know, whereas he doesn't really know who Kunishigi is, like who he was before that. He's inspired by the legend of Kunishigi, not by Kunishigi.
That's a very good way to put it, because you would think that like the way he visualizes Kunishigi in his head, he probably thinks that like it's just like him. Like he thinks he's following in his footsteps, you know? But he couldn't be more wrong. I really, you know, I think you put it brilliantly. Well said, Tiberius.
Oh damn, that's very rare. I get any glaze from dice. We gotta end on a high note.
Stop it! It's not that rare. Come on.
It's been 4 years.
No, shout out the dragons as well. This is the first time we see another spirit energy manifestation from the enchanted blade that isn't the fish. We get the cloud dragons.
I'm gonna be dead ass. When I first read this, I did not see no fucking dragon.
Oh, same,
I didn't even
bro.
realize he had a spear manifestation right there. Like, this boy, look at him. He got squiggly lines.
Yeah, no. To me, like the panel I think about in terms of when I first remember seeing the dragons is the one of him in the air. You know.
Yeah.
I think that's the one people usually think of. But like, yeah, you know, whether it's intentional from Hokuzono or not, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of snuck in there.
Yeah, almost like you got fettuccine noodles or some shit. Pasta.
Yeah, man. No, but Sojo, man. What a villain. What a character. Oh yeah. Hell of a cliffhanger, but I think it really works. I think it really works.
Just so everyone's on the same page here. If you couldn't tell, this is something completely different from what me and Dice are really used to, of like looking at a chapter and just like being more analytical, going through beat by beat, you know. And I think me and Dice both had like, you know, are gonna find comfort in this. So bear with us, you know. If there's a, you know, if y'all, you know, feedback is always helpful, so we can like learn. And you know, I don't want to speak for Dice or anything, of course, but you know, just keep that in mind. You know, going through like 8 chapters, you know, and I mean, we've only been going about 40 minutes longer than usual, and for one chapter, you know.
Yeah, no, you know, good point, man, because this is definitely new to us, covering so much content in just one go and one discussion, and finding ways to just segue through different things, kind of keeping track of what we think are like the more important things that also like stood out to us individually, while also trying to reflect a little bit, like I said up top, considering what we also have gotten since these chapters have released, which has been like a whole lot, right? Like a damn near a whole story, really. So yeah, you know, there will be some growing pains in terms of this Redux series, but yeah, I'm looking forward to, you know, kind of doing it better and it being a more smoother experience, not just for us, but also the listeners and the people watching us.
You know,
so yeah,
we'll find our footing
people.
for sure. You know, it's also, you know, not trying to like go too deep on theory crafting, because you know, we see things that like connects to like things that we you know, we haven't read in a while, so like, oh, it makes us remember certain things to like start trying to cook. So it's like, we also gotta like, you know, or for me, you know, I know I gotta hold back certain times, or like get more be more concise. But as Dice said, looking forward to like, you know, growing through it with y'all.
Yeah, no. And before we get out of here, I think there's a... No, go ahead. You were going to say something?
Oh, no, I was just going to shout out the members, that's all.
I do want to kind of bring up this bonus comic just really quick. There's, you know, nothing crazy, but it features one of the few wholesome moments that we get between Kunishigi and Chihiro. And again, this is the fish here, and I'm kind of like looking at this like, is there something to this moment? You know, it could be nothing. Like, you know, they both put their hand in the water and they talk about, you know, it's like a competition. Kunishigi says, it's time we settled this. According to legend, goldfish like you, they swim towards your hand. You know, like Chihiro says, it's really like, I'm the one who feeds them and changes their water and everything. So it's like, it's nothing crazy. People that have owned
Let's
fish.
Be real here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kunishige's probably got some dirty ass hands too.
I do like this moment. You know, not just is it wholesome, but I do like the interaction between Kunishigi and Chihiro. He's like, you don't have to force yourself to be a good sport. It's just so funny to me.
Chihiro's hands aren't even in the water yet. That's the big thing.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I was kind of looking at this and being like, yo, is there something here? Is there something like, again, what it has like that has to do with the fish and the connection to Chihiro and N10 and what exactly happened? But yeah, at the very least, it is just like a wholesome moment between the two. And for those that have had fish in the past, this is exactly how they act when they know they're about to get fed or they think they're about to get fed. So it's nothing crazy, but I do appreciate this little moment because again, we don't have a lot of these, right? Especially outside of these first couple of chapters. This is really it.
Because Kunishige dies.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean, like the flashback. Dice is over about the pixel scale, how the
oh
hands.
My god, yeah, stop me.
Yeah, it's like, they're about 33 centimeters away.
Yeah.
The fish bowl is like 32 degrees north, due north. Surprise price, the shirt that Kunishige is wearing that was on sale on Sheen.
Yo, stop it, cause like if you really like, I'll get going like that, cause you talked about Kunishige's shirt. I even took note of this, like, yeah, here we go indeed, cause there's in the first chapter he's like he's talking to like the sun, complaining about like how it's sunny and whatnot. And hey, you just brought up Kunishige's shirt. He does have a shirt about like, and I don't remember what chapter it was, about like the sun being sunny or whatever. That's not what it said.
Dice, dude, go eat yourself, please.
Oh man, let me stop before I forget.
The sickness taking my boy's brain.
Before I forget, there is like some notes from Hokuzono towards the end, which again, now that we're covering volumes, I do think it's a bit appropriate to just kind of shout it out. He does talk about like early designs of Shiba had him with his hair tied back, and we know that's exactly how he looks like in the Seitei War flashback. So he's been wanting to draw ponytail Shiba
he's been wanting to draw a fuck boy
for a minute. And there's a special thanks to this guy Akihira Kawasaki, which is a real life swordsmith that Hokuzono thought ended up looking like Kunishige. So it's nice to see just how much thought and inspiration went into the story.
You missed the biggest thing about that, though. There's the goldfish in a little assistant's office thing in the page right before she was drawing, bro. Come on, man. That's your bag. The fish are your goats.
Oh my god, man. Oh man. Yeah, this Redux series is gonna, give rise to a whole bunch of like brain rot from us.
Oh, fuck you, baby.
Oh man. But good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Always a good conversation. I like Dice a little bit, so it's fun.
Just a bit?
Nah, he glazed me this chapter so I can go to bed happy.
Oh man, no.
But
good volume.
Again, yeah, good. Oh yeah, peak volume. Let Hokuzono cook.
Yeah.
And again, shout out to the members. I hope y'all enjoyed a week early. Don't hesitate to rub it in other people's face and shout it out.
Yeah.
Because next, there will be another episode covering volume 2, and just stay alert and keep tabs on us for an announcement on that. And join the Discord.
Yes, join the Discord, and any feedback, like Tiberius said, is very appreciated, is very welcome. We'll find our footing with this whole thing, and we look forward to seeing where this Redux series goes.
We say we're gonna find our footing, where we're gonna end up like Ikuto.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, go down.
Oh my god.
All right, y'all have a good one. Peace.
Peace.